Good morning. I welcome you to this short presentation on how to carry out developmental reviews. What are we going to cover in this presentation? Well, we would be covering four things. An effective strategy is based upon a realistic appreciation of the context, the external realities, and the internal capabilities that we have. Therefore, we will look into the context of IRC 2022 and see why the need for carrying out developmental reviews is compelling for us. Thereafter, from the lens of positive psychology, we will also look at why carrying out developmental reviews is a challenge and why a conscious effort may be required for carrying out developmental reviews. Then, we will examine what is a developmental review. We will come up with an operational definition of a developmental review for our purpose. And then we will dwell upon how to carry out a developmental review. Lastly, we will cover what are the advantages a reviewer derives while carrying out a developmental review. Now, a quick recall on the vision of IRC 2022 for reinforcement. The vision that we had looked at was to organize a research conference that is memorable to the participants and they look forward to attending it in the future, which means that the experience of participating scholars is very, very important for the success of IRC 2022. Now, let us consider why developmental reviews. There are three reasons. The first is the business school requirement. The second is nation building by improving research outputs. And the third is an effective LBSIM branding. Now, for any progressive business school, positive engagement with community is essential. It also reflects in the Standard 9 of the ASCSB accreditation, which is about engagement and societal impact, and states the school demonstrates positive societal impact through internal and external initiatives and/or activities consistent with the school's mission, strategies, and expected outcomes. Our additional benefit this year has been that the IRC 2022 is on SDGs, and as per the reporting requirement of ASCSB Table 9.1, business schools have to document the initiatives they have taken for impacting the SDGs. Next, let us look at the aspect of nation building. Although IRC 2022 is an international conference and we have around 8 papers from different countries, majority papers are from Indian scholars. Now, many scholars yearn for appropriate guidance, which they might not be getting. Now, here is a huge opportunity for us to impact scholarly outputs by providing right guidance to these scholars. By providing developmental reviews, we will fill a scholarly need and also facilitate improved research outputs. For the size and talents in India, there is scope for improving research outputs. Next, by addressing a deep and unfulfilled need of scholars, we build the LBSIM brand that holds the promise of more scholars associating with us in the future editions of LBSIM IRC and thereby widening the impact of our social engagement. Let us now look at what a developmental review is. For the sake of our conference, here is the operational definition of a developmental review. Developmental review takes a humanistic approach towards reviewing a manuscript and provides inputs on the paper, resulting in improving the scholarship of the author and quality of the paper. When we talk about a humanistic approach, it looks into the dignity of the scholar. Now, the model of developmental review, it is the reviewer who takes on a humanistic approach, sincerely works on the paper, which is very, very important. A reviewer will have to devote time, good around 3 hours, 4 hours for carrying out a good developmental review. There might be things which a reviewer may not be aware. So while there would be good learnings for the reviewer, they would have to do some amount of reading, and that would be again a developmental thing for the reviewer themselves. And these two things should lead to providing inputs on the paper, which leads to improving the scholarship of the author. They become better researchers and also improve the quality of the paper. With this feedback, the author would be able to incorporate and improve the paper and lead to much better research outputs, and thereby improving the whole research output as far as India is concerned. Now, the challenges in doing the developmental reviews. It is well established that bad is stronger than good. We are more inclined towards what is not working, what needs to be improved, as compared to appreciating what is good. Now, this positive-negative asymmetry is also well recognized in the field of impression formation. We are more risk-averse than gain-sensitive. And from an evolutionary perspective, humans are hardwired to focus on threats and weakness rather than strengths. So it doesn't come naturally to us. What is good in something in this situation, how that thing can be leveraged. Therefore, a conscious effort would be required to look into the merits of each paper, um, highlight that, and then leveraging those merits, provide our developmental inputs as to how the paper can be further improved. Now, what is the importance for LBSIM for doing developmental reviews? Let's look into that. The IRC 2022 is the first international conference that we are doing. Now, the response of scholars across India is heartening. We have around 62 papers from different parts of India, and we have around 8 international papers. Now, these scholars have trusted us with their cognitive toil. There's a lot of work which goes into writing a paper, and our dropout rate from submitting the extended abstract to the full paper has been very, very less. It has been around 6% only, which means that the scholars have trusted us, that, this is a well-meaning conference, they would be benefited. And if you are able to do that, right, we really create some goodness in the community, and that is why we should be doing it. Next, we look at how do we carry out developmental reviews? And the question is, what can be a simple yet effective way for carrying out developmental reviews? Well, there are three things. One is having a rubric which guides the reviewer for carrying out effective reviews. The second is having the rigor, the scientific rigor for carrying out reviews. And the third is um, being propelled by the spirit of teamwork. An international conference where we have so many research papers cannot be made success by just the organizing committee. We need the support of each faculty who are themselves good researchers. So these three things would enable us to carry out very effective developmental reviews, which we have looked at, um, that it is the need of the hour. It has got so many benefits as far as the business school is concerned, nation building is concerned, and the branding of LBSIM is concerned. To enable effective developmental reviews, we have created a rubric that would enable the reviewers to focus on the main sections of the paper and the critical aspects in each particular section. Now, the rubric is primarily for the empirical papers, but even for the qualitative papers, a few sections of the rubric would be relevant. For instance, if it is the introduction, is a research question well articulated, are the research gaps clearly spelled out, the research design, is it aligned to answering the research question, are the inferences which are drawn logical, right? So as far as the scientific approach is concerned, this rubric is going to help even in the qualitative papers. Next, the purpose of the rubric is to guide the reviewers to document the developmental inputs after each section. And in the next slide, we will look at that, how specifically all these things have to be carried out. And then drawing from these inputs which you have documented, at the end you would be able to provide a summary of the developmental input. So the whole summary has to be articulated, drawing from the notes that you have prepared for each section and looking into each critical aspect in each section. Now let us look at the rubric. So if you see, this is the section, this is the attribute, and then in the each attribute, what are the critical aspects that you have to look at. So once you have read that particular section, there's going to be a drop down wherein you can just mention whether you think this is underdeveloped, adequate, or well developed. And thereafter, you should be writing your notes over here, the developmental review notes, right, pertaining to each and every section. Uh, Now, this is section 2, which looks into the theoretical framework. The section 3 looks into the design and the methodology which has been adopted. For each of this, you would have a drop down, whether it is underdeveloped, adequate, or well developed. And then you can keep writing your notes over here. Thereafter, um, this is a place where you would have to first mention what is the strength of the paper. Now, drawing from the positive psychology approach, every paper, every situation has got certain, strengths, and that is also taking an appreciative inquiry approach. That what are these strengths which can be leveraged further. So uh, the author should be getting um, at the beginning what are the good things in the paper, and thereafter, from the notes that you have made after each section, you should articulate the developmental review over here, which would uh, be for each and every section. Now, you should also remember that every paper has got certain strengths. If there is a paper which is more focused on the methodological innovation, then maybe the other aspects may not be dwelled at great length. So that would be depend upon the whole thrust of the research which the author has carried out. So you should be able to document the developmental reviews over here. Next, in the rubric, you have three recommendations to make. The first is, do you recommend the paper to be presented at the IRC 2022 on the 26th of March? So here you have the options. Certainly yes, perhaps certainly not. So you have to select one from the drop down. Similarly, we have got 2 publication opportunities in ABDC and Scopus indexed journals. So you have to make a recommendation. Again, out of these 4, whether you recommend that this paper should be considered, and once you make these recommendations, once we have these recommendations for different papers, these are the papers which would be minutely looked at, and then they would be, after the conference is over, they will go through the review, very detailed review, and then revision. And then maybe after 3 to 4 months, we would be sending it to the journal editors in chief. I would be in touch with them, and in case we are able to rope in some of their associate editors for the review, we would be doing that. In fact, the editor-in-chief has mentioned that they would be, keen to even do that. Next, we look at you should be recommending whether this paper fits with the best paper, category or not. For each of the SDGs, we would be giving a best paper award. So whatever theme the paper is of, you should be recommending, again based on these four criteria. Now we look at how will the review benefit me. The allocation of the paper for review has been done very deliberately. The paper has been looked into. The profile of the faculty and researcher has been looked into. We have been cautious that whatever paper a reviewer gets, it should provide some learning opportunities, some insight, and because it is in their domain and their area of expertise, they would be able to add value. So a lot of effort has gone into allocation. It has not been done randomly. Next, reviewing papers hones our critical thinking, and that contributes to our own scholarship because uh, and this rubric is going to help, right? So looking into each section and mapping it to the rubric, right? That again is going to be a good learning experience for the reviewers. uh, I learn a lot when I carry out reviews. It's a different skill set which gets exercised, right? So once we have these opportunities for carrying out reviews, we should never miss out on them. And the third is we would be able to experience a feeling of camaraderie by taking part in an institution building activity. An international conference, research conference, uh, cannot be carried out only by few people in the organizing committee, right? Huge effort is required, and it is an institution-wide activity. And the moment you contribute to that, you have the satisfaction of contributing towards institution building. So that is all. I would be releasing these papers to each one of you very shortly, and looking forward to your contribution for making the current as well as the future editions of LBSIM International Research Conferences a grand success. Thank you so much.